بيتي أنا بيتك وما إلي حدا من كتر ما ناديتك وسع المدى وسع المدى وسع المدى.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's Force Space. Thanks so much for joining us for today's event. The next part of the Unveiling Equity series, Traces of Home. And we would like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands here in Chichage, Montreal. And we respect the continued connections with the past, the present, and future, and our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. Here at ForceSpace, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge. We co-create daily activities that examine research questions, projects, things happening across the university. Now, we're running today's event as well as a live stream both to YouTube as well as a Zoom meeting. So if you're joining us on Zoom, we welcome any comments or questions with a raised hand or via the chat. And those of you here in the space with us, if you have any comments or questions a little later on, just raise your hand and we'll run a microphone around so that everyone can hear. With that, it's very much my pleasure to pass the microphone to the Associate Director of the Canadian Practitioners Network for the Prevention of Extremist Violence, as well as a Research Associate and Research Coordinator for the Center for Study of Learning and Performance, Zeina Ismail Alouche. Good morning.
Thank you so much. I know it's hard to mention all those titles, but this is life. Thank you so much, Douglas, and thank you so much for the Force Space team that who makes us feel at home every time we come here. So thank you for this. We just heard Fairuz singing بيتي أنا بيتك وما إلي حدا من كتر ما ناديتك وسع المدى. In Fairuz's voice, the home is never only a house. It's longing, it's absence. It is the fragile thread stretched between those who remain and those who are lost, displaced, or forever awaited. We gather in the shadow of homes that no longer exist, villages reduced to rubble, rooms left open to the sky, family photographs buried beneath stone and dust, olive trees standing beside collapsed walls as silent witness to histories others attempt to erase. As part of this Unveiling Equity series and in partnership with the CSLP, CPN-PREV, and the Indigenous Healing Knowledge Chair at Concordia, we gather all under the Resisting Colonization Collective's umbrella and as a way to resist and come together as a community. We think that this is happening only in Gaza. South Lebanon is being forgotten from the scene. And just yesterday, coming back from Winnipeg, I witnessed the ongoing displacement of Indigenous people in Canada. It's not about the history. It's about the ongoing colonial presence everywhere they are present. The monster is not the other. Sometimes the monster is us as well. The issue is that what is destroyed in war is never only infrastructure. Beyond concrete and stone, there are the intimate archives of ordinary life. The staircase worn down by generations of footsteps, books annotated in the margins, and the smell of coffee in the morning. Entire landscapes of memory disappear in a single strike. Today, we are asking ourselves what is meant to lose. it's not the land only, but the material anchoring the belonging and connecting us with those memories. And what happens when grief is not only for people, but also for the places that held them? How do we mourn when homes, villages, and histories are deliberately erased? How do we survive where mourning by itself becomes a privilege? I am very honored to be joined today by amazing friends, colleagues, and family. Diana Mukallid joining us, and sorry for saying Mukallid, Diana Mukallid joining us from Lebanon. She's a Lebanese journalist, documentary filmmaker, and co-founder of Daraj Media, an independent Beirut-based platform dedicated to investigative journalism and underreported stories across the Arab region. Diana has reported from conflict zones across the region, documenting the human realities of war, displacement, and political violence. But what about her personal loss? We are joined today also by Guillaume Jabbour. He presents himself as a French-Canadian Palestinian researcher, musician, and community sound artist based in Georgia, Montreal. Through sound, music, and research creation, his work explores the lived experiences of Palestinians across generations and geographies. Finally, I would like to welcome Jad Orfe Shami, an artist, researcher, and composer from Beirut and based in Georgia, Montreal. With Jad, we explore the tensions of this intergenerational storytelling, welcoming him in this space not only as a researcher, but as a son, which brings its tension as well. Jad will reconnect with the lost house, home, the grandparents' home in Bint Jbeil at the suburbs of the south. Welcome you, my dear friends. I would like to start with you, Diana, if you would like to revisit who you are in this space and tell us about that loss, the loss of the house, of the home.
Thank you so much, Zaina, for having me, and thank you for the participants and the audience. As you just said, I'm a Lebanese journalist. I've been in the field for the past 35 years. I've covered wars in the region. I've covered wars and invasions against Lebanon. So unfortunately, this is not new, but the level of destruction that Israel has exercised and still doing against Lebanon is unprecedented. We haven't witnessed something like this. Personally, I'm from South Lebanon. I'm from a small village named Tibnin. I know this village since my childhood, since my teenage time. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. My father was born in Tibnin, but he immigrated to Saudi Arabia to build himself. He tried as much as he can to support us as a family. And he had a dream to build a house in the same village he suffered to have a house in. He came from a very poor family, and he dreamt of building a house. So I witnessed in the 80s, early 90s, years how my father used to build this house. He built it sometimes with his bare hands. He planted its trees. I mean, I don't want to bother you with the long story of how this house was built, but it's a story of my father. It's a story of my family. So with all these years, my father passed away a couple of years ago. This house gathered us, me and my brothers and sister. It's our story. It connected us with who we are, with our relation with my father. So when the war started in the previous war and Israel started demolishing houses in South Lebanon, we all got afraid what will happen to our house. Especially, we knew that Tibnin was hit hard, and in the same street of our house, it was hit hard. Last war, the house survived. It was damaged, but it survived. In this war, unfortunately, as we kept watching what's happening in South Lebanon, and one day I was at my office and I got the news. My mother called me and she was sobbing and she said, Diana, البيت راح, the house is gone. And she hung out. That was my utmost fear, to lose the house, to lose the memory, to lose what my father built. I rushed to the internet to search for some photos because the rescue workers managed to film some seconds, some footage of the house. I tried to scan it, to make it, to enlarge it, to see what remained of the house. And I could only see the destruction. I could see the trees that my father planted covered with gray dust. So yeah, I gathered with my family. We mourned our house. We cried like it was a real loss. And it's not only us. Tens of families have lost loved ones and have lost their homes. Some families have lost more than one house. Because, Lebanese people, many of them live in Beirut and have a family house in the south. They lost both. So it has turned into a widespread tragedy by people not only losing loved ones, but losing their connection. Till today, I keep searching on a daily basis footages about South Lebanon and about my village. And I cannot wait to cease fire, to go and see on ground what has happened. I still can't. Will I be able to find anything, a lost photo, something that connects me to what was there in the house? I don't know. I still feel that we are in the dark. I want to check the grave of my father, who is very close to the house. And the war is not over. Will it take more of our lands, of our memories? This is an open question. So it's really complicated. It's really agonizing thousands of people, not only me, cutting our relation with our villages, with our lands. I think the Israelis, mainly the leaders, don't understand why are we so much attached to our lands beyond the military scale. There is no justification whatsoever when you erase a whole village, a whole house. Even if there are militants, they are killing whole families. So to me, there is no justification by erasing our house. Why would a plane come with 3 rockets demolishing our house? That took years of dreams. The only thing I keep telling myself, I don't know if it's luck, but I'm glad that my father did not witness this, because I've lived his dream. I know what he was thinking while he was trying to build this house for his children and grandchildren, and we did enjoy it. This house was for us, my brothers and sister, for our children and grandchildren. But unfortunately, now we are still absorbing the loss. The war is not over. We couldn't evaluate the amount of loss that we have suffered so far. I'm waiting for the minute to go over to Tibnin and check with my own eyes what have happened there.
What words to get resourced with when we witness your telling, your sharing, Diana, and it's being away and witnessing all those losses is hard as well. So thank you for giving us the details, the nuances. It's not about the material; it's beyond that. It's years, as you said, and I'm getting emotional, and I have the luxury and the privilege of getting emotional from afar. So thank you for bringing that voice into the space, Diana. Guillaume, your situation is different. You are getting to know more your lost identity, the spaces that you did not witness firsthand, but you're trying through the memory of your father to get to know what was there and what was lost. Can you speak about that?
Sure, yeah. First of all, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for being here. Thanks for opening your stories up as well. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, to be able to share. So as you said in my description, French-Canadian, Palestinian, I've gotten the best and the worst from my French-Canadian side of my family, and I do say French-Canadian, not Québécois. That's something that was passed down to me from my mother. It was important for her that we associate with French-Canadianness and not necessarily Québécois, which is another discussion for another day. But the Palestine stories were always there growing up from my father, but in kind of an abstract way, and often in laughing. A lot of romantic stories about home, how somehow things were always better there. And it's really only, I would say, when I had my children. So my son is on the cusp of being 18 years old. So I'd say when he was born, I started to really question, I suppose, my grandparents' impossible decision to, and I mean, leave isn't even the right word. In all the reading I've done now and all the discussions I've had, they didn't quite leave. They were forced out, and they lost what was there. So starting to think about that as a father, as a parent, how do you take your children, how do you pack things up and go in 1948? We're talking about 1948 here. They were lucky they left in a car, which is, better than a lot of people from what I've learned. And as the story goes, under fire. And they went towards Egypt. They were recommended, why don't you go to Egypt through friends? You have some friends there. You can go there for a few weeks, maybe a month tops, and then you can come back. And as soon as they left, as the family story goes, my grandfather had a change of heart and said, no, we can't leave, we have to go back. And they tried right away to come back, and they were stopped right away at the border and said, you can't go back, it's a war. You can't, and that was it. And I mean, I tell this, there's some tension here. There's some tension in the family story. And you say, I'm getting the history from my father, but it's also from my aunts. I have 5 aunts, my father's sisters, who were all born in Haifa as well. And the family for many generations was based in Haifa. And so I'm getting these pieces from everybody, and not everybody wants to talk about it, and not everybody wants to talk about the same things. But through, again, the privilege of being in school, coming back to school later in life, being in academia, and having the space and the time to read and to get informed and to have long, drawn-out conversations, because that's what it takes. It takes a lot of time with family and with other people to build those relationships, to be able to be in a place where we can actually talk and, not just ask the blunt question of, can you tell me about Haifa? Can you tell me about the home in Palestine? I want to know, right? Because that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It takes food, it takes laughter, it takes tears, and a lot of time. And in other, I'll talk about some other things that have worked for these conversations. But what I've come to understand is that there's a really deep attachment for not just the house, but I guess the home that they left behind. And this comes out in like really tense arguments, let's say, around the table about funny everyday things like the garden in the back, right? We had this conversation last fall. What were the plants? What was growing in the back of the house? So they were in French Carmel, so very, very particular circumstances. And again, I share these, I'm kind of discoursing here, I'm going all over the place, but that's the way it is. I share this with apprehension because these are not my stories. This is my interpretation of my family's stories. And so I'm navigating this space with care. I'm being as careful as I can. And I'm trying to understand what's my story in all of this. Mm-hmm. And so this is my family's story, which is part of me. But for me, this conversation of what were the plants growing in the backyard is so rich and is so, it's so visual, right? I can see it when they're talking about it, but they're arguing about it. There was a fig tree, there were rabbits, there were chickens. There were no chickens. And they have this very tense, very heated argument about what were the animals, what were the plants in the backyard. And so to me, that's where it becomes very concrete and very real, and sensory, you know, and very immediate. Like my father says, these days, my dad's 91. He says, sometimes I dream of Palestine. And I wonder, you know, was I ever even really there? And he sees some of the documents that we have, and he says, well, this is how I know. And this is how I know, you know.
Guillaume and I, each time we meet, we promise each other we will not fall in tears, but it happens. And yeah, again, we have the privilege of remembering as an act of resistance as well. Jad, your connection to Bint Jbeil is also different. You are the you're talking about your kids, so now we are into that generation that has a connection from far, but we witnessed how many times this house in Bint Jbeil was rebuilt. It was not the first time that it was attacked and put to rubble. We witnessed Insaf, the grandmother, trying to get all the documents, because back then there were no documents of property, because it was known that this is their house. But to rebuild, they were supposed to get those documents. And you've been there maybe a couple of times. How, share about that connection. And I am very conscious about the authority in our relationship as a mother. Yeah, please share your perception, especially that your work is focusing on grief, memory, and lamentation.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you to everyone. Yeah, the house in Bint Jbeil, to give you an idea, from the view from my grandmother's grave is directly the last bit of mountains that separate Lebanon from Palestine. So I remember having this thought that how come throughout the war so many bombardments have destroyed the surrounding areas, but this little bit of land where my grandmother is buried has been protected. So I would imagine her as this sort of supernatural creature basically protecting this area. I grew up loving Japanese animation, so this huge robot basically that is just being through her presence able to fabulate other realities. And my work is very much rooted in this, trying to find or to legitimize sort of a poetry of what this house was. The house itself was very narrow. I say was because it was most probably destroyed. And it was a 3-story house where the first floor was empty, sort of like a space of in between, kind of to get you ready to go up. into the different shrines. And I say shrines because my sister and I's very first like twin-size beds were sent to Bint Jbeil in the south, and they are placed at the 3rd floor in a manner that replicates how our childhood rooms looked like. And I think my grandmother and her wisdom wanted to create a shrine for us far from Beirut, but also as a way to entice us to visit more. I have a lot of beautiful memories of meeting also my grandfather's sister who could barely walk, get up the stairs, but really wanted us to have some pieces of candy. There was something very surreal about being so close to the border, and the way that people around us in Beirut would talk about Bint Jbeil as this basically combat zone, like something that doesn't exist beyond the realms of war, and then being there and seeing how much people value this poetry of architecture, of common living. Yeah, right now, and the thing about losing a house and losing people and losing access is that archives become obsolete, and there has to be another way as artists, as oral historians, to think about how we deal with memory. And in academia, I've grown quite tired of how Western oral history has been built around the... So,
Go on.
oh yeah, how it was, yeah, I grew tired about how oral history was built around this idea that archives are proof. So there's something very much related to also like policing and detective work that is quite icky when we think about it. This idea that we have to prove that we existed through documentations when we very much know that our people don't have this documentation. And so I draw a lot from critical fabulation, from Afrofeminist approaches that say that basically we as storytellers are able to fabulate and weave the missing pieces using fiction, but also using song, music. And there hasn't been a moment like today where this is as essential. And Jan put it very well in one of her articles. It's like, who has the monopoly of grief and who gets the grief? And how come in these moments we are expected to be these warriors, these martyrs that are able to keep going when grief in the long term is embedded in our traditions, and our bodies are not meant to keep going. And there are protocols, specifically in South Lebanon, specifically in Eastern Christianity and Shia Islam in the South, that make grief a communal, but also very much cathartic moment where song and body and storytelling weave the missing pieces for us.
Yeah, thank you, Jad, for sharing this. And it takes me back to Diana because of what Jad quoted from your writing about this sort of delegitimizing the mourning now, because there is something bigger than us happening, and that mourning is not allowed because there is this huge battle that we are pushed in. And So can you speak about that, this legitimacy to mourn, especially when the loss is, they say it's in the material, and we have this saying, بالحديد ولا بصحابه, but the home is not that, it's beyond that, it's not the material.
There is a collective understanding that we should all gather behind the battle and not recognize the houses, etc., waiting for victory, and then we can talk about our losses. Well, I'm from those who refuse to say that let's wait and let's not talk about what we have lost. No, what we have lost is something that we cannot make up. Nothing will bring back what we have lost, even victory. And victory definition is not clear yet. Definitely, my first goal now at the moment is Israel not to occupy South Lebanon, and the war to stop, and the human losses to stop. But what we have lost so far, the ecocide, the genocide, name it whatever you want, the catastrophe, the loss is grave. So who will bring us the same seatings that we used to make under the walnut tree that my father planted? We cannot make this, even if we rebuild the house. The new generation will make its own memory. But what we have lived is only in our heads and in what we have still in our phones or in our archive footages. But it's gone. We have to admit that there is something huge have happened to us in South Lebanon. The demolishing. Who would remind you with the corner that used to stand? Who would remind you with the Kazdura where we used to walk and now it has all gone? The small shop, the small library, the pond, the Birke, where we used to gather and collect. No, these things we have lost them forever, unfortunately. And I'm not exaggerating. Yes, life goes on and new generation will come and make their own memories and future. But we are a generation, and those who are before us, we have lost. Now new people will make their own story. We have to close our chapter. And this is reality. And this is the reality of South Lebanon today. Again, it's so personal, it's so damaging that we cannot evaluate the amount of losses that have been inflicted on us. But to me, it's part of my identity. I'm a journalist. I have traveled a lot. I have gathered so many identities. I'm a feminist, I'm liberal, I'm democratic, etc. I'm a social democrat, so many things. But I'm also the little girl who lived in Tibnin, in the same land where my father used to collect figs when he was young to make his living. This is my identity. This piece of land summarizes who am I, and I want it back. So it's so simple to me, and it's so clear. I want this piece of land. I'm from there, and I want to go back again. Yes, they have managed to demolish my heritage, my history, but I will still go there, and I am from there. This is my land. I'm not giving it up. So, I have those mixture of feelings, of belonging, of identity, of loss. I cannot still make sense of it, all of it. I still need to go there and either make a closure or make a new opening. I don't know.
You wrote a piece, though. You wrote an article, and maybe we can see now the photo of the cover of that article that also shows a picture of your belated father when he was in the making of the house. What did you need?
Yes.
What did you need to write that piece? البيت راح يا ماما. What did you? Yeah, tell me about that.
I wanted to salute my dad. This is all I wanted. You see this footage of him sitting on the balcony. To him, that meant the world. To sit on this balcony and look around him and remember his poor childhood and how he managed to make this house. So to me, I just wanted to tell his story. I don't want him to be someone who was born and lived and erased. I felt that Israel erased my father. I'm not going to enable that, at least with telling the stories. This is the only tool we have now, is to tell the stories. I am telling the story of my house, my family house, my father. And I think we all should keep telling the stories of these houses. Each house has a story. We started in Daraj making a segment called A Story of a House, where we meet people who have lost their houses and tell their stories. And we all have a shared feeling that we want to keep it alive. We have lost a lot, but at least let's not let them steal the story of us.
Yeah. Jad, you're trying also to tell the story of the lost house, of the lost memories. Diana is using her journalism to spread the word. How are you approaching, through which medium?
So my main medium has been music, but through oral history and through my PhD work, it seemed that more and more there was this question of reconstructing land and giving physicality to it. So I've been very much working with puppetry, and notably digital puppetry, to reconstruct, and that's quoting Sylvie Charest, reconstructing the body in order to permit us to grieve properly. And that's at the center of the act of witnessing, is being able to give the disappeared a body, and the disappeared can also be land, a house, in order to be able to bury it properly. So in some of my work, and maybe I can share my screen. There's the notion of oral history performance as a space also to fabulate these realities. This performance was part of my master's thesis, and it was rooted on this idea that the people that carry grief as a transformative energy everywhere in the world, and especially in Lebanon, have been the mothers, and more particularly and during the Civil War, the mothers of the missing and disappeared. So very briefly, Wadat Halwani and other wonderful women created a collective, which was the first secular collective, I believe, during the Civil War, composed of all confessions, political allegiances, and they were a group of women, mothers, sisters, wives of people that were missing. They drew tents and downtown, and a very Antigonesque will decided to wait for the return of the bodies. During the same time as I was doing this work, the explosion of the Beirut port happened in 2020, and I decided to work on this question of the disappeared and how it's a lingering violence because the Civil War, when the Civil War ended, there was this idea that we had to basically sweep everything under the rug in order to maintain the status quo. When people disappeared during the explosion, we were also asked to forget about them. And hundreds of people disappeared, and some of them, and a lot of them, were foreign workers, Syrian, Palestinian refugees, that because of their status also were more prone to be forgotten. So in this work that we're seeing, there is aerial projection of the Beirut port on the floor, and they had placed sensors. It's a very simple process that we call makey in music, where sensors are gonna basically, based on the pressure, change the pitch or the texture of sound in music. So I'm using a patch of nai flutes, and I have placed the sensors on the places where people went missing. So when you touch them, sounds come out. And it's a very simple way to give body, give sound to this absence. And in the background, there's my mother, Zaina, doing a verbatim telling, so performing a testimony of that retells the story of Wadad and Odette, her friend, who waited all her life for the return of her sons, and daughters.
Thanks, Jad. The importance of giving life to what is lost and maintaining it in the memory alive in a way, but also that sensory connection to the absence, to the vacuum, to the void. And I think Guillaume has something related as well, because you work with the sound. You research soundscape as a way to connect with the space, with the history, with the stories that were not told. So can you speak about your work as well, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, I think, in our work and in what Diana's talked about as well. I was listening actually just before coming to an interview, Diana, that you did from a few years ago on Daraj Media, and you were talking about this is more relating to media and sort of the, if for lack of a better word, like the left and the right mainstream media, and you were talking about the need for a third space or a third kind of media, and that really resonates with me. The sort of the need for a third, story, or more than a third story, many more stories, because the stories aren't black and white. And again, that's where I think oral history comes in, and the listening and the sound aspects for me are, for families that have experienced displacement and frequent migrations, the artifacts are lost, right? And so oral history, the memories spoken, passed down orally, are all we have, right? And so that's where it becomes really important for me. The idea behind my work is that there's my chapter, if you will. I'm calling it chapter for lack of a better description, but I'm going to be also working, and I've already started to sort of build a community of people that I want to work with, working with other people that work in sound or that have something to do with sound and listening in their lives. That's an important aspect, such as radio people, musicians, spoken word artists, etc., and their networks. And so together we'll co-create something, right? Some sound work in true sort of research creation fashion. I don't really know what the outcome is going to be, which is really exciting and terrifying at the same time. I can share maybe a little bit of what I've done so far as prototypes. You know, you talk about, you spoke before about documents and sort of oral histories, tendency, I think, towards maybe overemphasizing the importance of documents. And to me, the family documents have just come into my knowledge recently. It's only been a few years. These things come in drips and drabs, as I'm sure you know. And my father suddenly, a few years ago, in a conversation, says, "Do you want to see some documents of the house in Haifa?" And I was like, you know, of course, absolutely. I would love to see some documents. So he pulls out this old poster protector thing, and he pulls out these sheets and sheets of architectural drawings of the house. And this is the first time that I see any imagery of the house, you know. And I don't have a real picture. I don't have a photo of the house, but I have these plans, these drawings of the dimensions that really makes it concrete. And, you know, when I started to work with these with my dad, and he had this realization like, oh, you know what? Maybe now they'll believe us, is what one of his first thoughts, you know, because growing up for me, I saw my dad many times quite upset from conversations with people. We grew up in a small Laurentians, very French, you know, town. Now it's French. 100 years ago it was English, but that's another story for another day. And this is ignorance and naivety. You know, it's. I love the place where I grew up. I love the people that were around me that grew up. It was a very supportive place. But I think the information wasn't there to understand a Palestinian immigrant's story. You know, the narrative wasn't there. There's a lot more information now, but still, there's a lot of people that still just don't get the narrative. And so this idea of proving something it's so raw, you know, for me to hear my dad say that about needing to prove something, you know, it's really heavy and really emotional. But the idea behind this work, you can see in the corner, there's this microphone, which is it's a hydrophone actually, which goes in water, but also with the adapter, it becomes a very sensitive contact microphone. And so this work is my dad interacting with these blueprints of the house, and it picks up all the textural information of his fingers going over the rooms and describing, you know, in his memory, describing what these rooms were and what happened there and what it was like and what it looked like. And meanwhile, there's something very deeply textural about his fingers going over these. These are the original papers, you know, that he's going over and interacting with. And so for me, the point here, I mean, it's very personal, obviously, but it's also maybe that at some point, I don't know when, and I don't know how. And right now, my only accountability is to the people that will participate in these projects with me. So I'm not even thinking about audiences. My only accountability is to the people that are doing this work with me. But maybe at some point, when the time is right, with everybody's approval and consent, maybe this can tell a nuanced story to someone who doesn't understand the story. And if they feel it sensorily, if they really understand, you know, his 91-year-old hands interacting with this original paper, maybe they'll feel something that they didn't think about before. And this is about going beyond words, you know, and I think there's something very powerful about the abstract, because everything that can be said has been said. What else can we say? How many times can we say genocide and have people deny it, you know? And so maybe I think the artist's role in this situation is that we have the ability to present things in a different way, in a different multisensory way, in a way that transcends words and language, that might be able to reach someone, you know, even if it's at a raw level in their ears. It's like, oh, I never heard that sound before. That's interesting. I've never seen anyone interact with this kind of archival document before. That's interesting, you know, and it might somewhat change their perspective about things. And that's all. That's really it's simple. right? It's about creating another space, creating a third or an infinite space for these different stories. And so this is just one little story. This is my family, and exchanging with my dad's sisters, with my aunts, and other cousins as well that are in Canada now. I'm hoping to be able to piece together some sonic works that tells a small part of the story, and then by interacting with other artists who also have very different and somehow similar stories as well, and see if we can put together a sort of a multi-chapter soundscape work that will be a performance of ethnography in a way.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this, Guillaume, and staying on your computer because you're connected now and we can see your camera. You're learning Arabic and you're learning oud and you're learning to sing in Arabic, and I saw that you've prepared. And I'm sorry, like, I'm not pushing you, but it's just like, why this is important for you, why it's important to connect with that, with the language, with the song, with the instruments.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, well, I have a hard head. And so when people tell me something is hard or you can't, it makes me want to do it even more, right? And so there was a suppression, I would say, of my Palestinian heritage growing up. You know, we were told, although my dad's a proud Palestinian and he often said, I'm Palestinian, but we were told, be careful, don't say it. Don't say you're Palestinian, don't say your father's Palestinian, it's kind of dangerous. We're talking about 80s, 90s, you know? And it was kind of like, whatever, you know, and I always said it, but like I said, my kids being born and digging deeper into the family history, there's something that I don't know what to call it. I mean, there's certainly a pride element. There's a lot of love. I don't know exactly what to call it, but there's a deep desire that I'm feeling more and more to want to understand that side of me. And language is a huge, as you all know, is a huge aspect of identity. So yes, I'm learning Arabic. As you know, it's a very slow process. It's a very difficult process, as I've been told my whole life. Oh, it's really difficult. You know. But I believe, and I know that I can get there. But music. So I'm a musician, and folk music is something I've done for a long time, for my entire life. That's a loud noise.
Yeah, we're experiencing buzz, but
it's funny we're talking
I hope
about
it's
sound.
not impacting the recording. Okay.
It's okay. All right. So music is a language I speak, and folk music is a language that I speak. And so I've been learning oud repertoire for a while, for about a year now, and have a wonderful teacher, Aboud Kayali, who I think is listening online today. And what oud has done for me, well, first of all, it's like broken my body, broken my my European notion of music, right? Because the time signatures are different, the instrumentation obviously is different, everything is different. There's something familiar about it, about the oud and the guitar are close, but it's given me access to be able to come in a room with people who understand oud music, and if I play a piece, you know, a Ferouz piece or something, something happens, and so I don't have to be able to speak Arabic fluently if I can speak oud a little bit, you know.
Can you share with us?
Absolutely, yeah. So what I'd like to share is just a very short excerpt from the Resisting Colonization Symposium that we had just a few weeks ago in Quebec. And my talk ended with a short performance, a few pieces. And for me, the power of music is in bringing people together. And so I knew this was the right audience. It's a very solemn participation, but you get the sense of the crowd here. So see if this works. So it should be playing. So you can hear people singing along in the background, which, you know, is so moving for me, because I don't know the language enough to be able to sing, but I can lead a sing-along, which is really like, you know, in terms of identity and reconnecting with roots, being able to be in a room full of people that are connected more deeply with the music, it's powerful, you know, and there's a sense of belonging, something that happens, you know, that's hard to explain in words, which is why music, I think, does a much better job.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing this with us, Guillaume. I'm not sure if he needs to stop sharing the screen, please. Diana, you're seeing us, you're there, and you were seeing us from that distance as well. And we have to be honest with you, we are here also denied that privilege of talking from that space as well. Who you are, you're not there, you cannot, you don't know what's happening, you cannot feel what we are undergoing. Yes, yet we have feelings, and we are also in a separation and in mourning. How you're seeing us now, listening to you from that space, what are you hoping from us to be able to do? How we can use that privilege to be supportive in any way?
Well, I'm not going to jump and lash those who are outside and telling them that you are not entitled to your pain. Actually, yes, I'm here, but I'm finding my own way to grieve and also to fight back. But those who are outside, I know from my sister who lives in the state, who is in a much worse shape than I am. It's not because we're better here, but I think being here, living all what's happening around us, but also creating this sense of I'm here, I'm finding my own way to fight back. It's much more difficult for you who are far, you are feeling more guilty that you keep saying the word we are privileged. No, I don't think you are privileged. I think you are suffering from a different perspective. You are struggling in your life. You paid a heavy price to live abroad and to raise your family. And I know the identity issue is complicated. I was so, I wouldn't say happy, but I loved what I've seen from Jad and Guillaume, the work that they're doing through music, through art, through performances. I think this is something very much needed. This is how we keep the story alive. This is what Guillaume said, that telling you we need stories, we need third story, fourth story. So it's the same story, but it's being told in different ways and narratives, and this is very much needed. So I don't allow myself to undermine what you are doing. Actually, I praise it, and I think we need more of it, enabling these stories to come out, to be heard outside. I'm talking in Arabic. I'm talking to people here around me. Yes, I know with internet and social media, you can reach much more people, but I'm addressing people here around me, and I'm struggling, and I'm going through debates with people who are here. It's a different perspective when you are abroad, because you are also debating with those who are supporting, let's say, the narrative of Israel, and who are trying to show other stories. And I think you're doing that. Here in Lebanon, the struggle is more dynamic, it's more internal, is more dangerous sometimes. So I think we complement each other. I think what we're doing here and what you're doing there is serving the same story. The story of Jad's grandparent home, he is telling it from his own family perspective. Here we are, once we can, we'll try to go to Bint Jbeil and keep saying what we should say about Bint Jbeil. So I think we're telling the same thing from a different perspective. And let's not give much space for those who are trying to stop us from telling these stories, whether internally or from outside.
Diana, you've mentioned that telling this third story is not without a price, without a cost. And we know how much you endured to be able to keep on telling that other story. What would be that story that you want to pass on to your son, who's also living in a way from, like he experienced this from a distance, the loss of the grandparents' house? What is that passing that you want to keep? You want him to preserve with his own twist, but there is something that you would like him to touch.
Well, Zaina, you pressed a very touchy nerve with this question. I have one son now. He is studying in the UK university. I keep telling myself, will he come back to Lebanon? Will he be having roots here in the country? I know he is very supportive, and he was extremely angry and upset and stood next to me when the house was hit by Israel. And he said, Mama, don't worry, I will rebuild a new house. And I felt good when he tried to comfort me. But I cannot escape but asking myself, will he ever be back? The country, I was here all the time, and I'm glad I did not leave the country. But I pushed my son to go abroad and to study abroad. And this is a contradiction. This contradiction we all live in. We're ready to fight, but we are scared for our children. And I don't know if I made the right decision or not. I'm happy that he is finding his way, but am I keeping him from Lebanon? Am I pushing him far? Will he ever be back? When I grow older, will be here next to me? Lebanon is an open question. We don't know what future will be holding to Lebanon. How the war will be ending, who will rebuild the country and the South. This question will impose itself on a new generation who are looking to build themselves. So this question of identity, connection, family, we are a country of immigrants. We have millions of Lebanese abroad. You yourself are living this with your children. You are spread on 3 countries, sometimes more, depending on where your children will be moving. Guillaume is the same. Jad is doing this. I really don't have an answer, but I have a very difficult question. Will we ever be living together in the same country? Will we ever be building the same house? My father, in this house that was demolished by Israel, he was dreaming, and he built a huge house with several stories, thinking that each son or each daughter will have a small flat, but we will all be living together. I cannot dare to dream with doing the same. I don't know. It's really hard to imagine if we will ever be together again. Of course, we will be meeting. He is visiting me, but I think his future is taking him far from me, far from Lebanon. And this is something is not easy, but at the same time, it's inevitable if we keep this country in a war and struggles and fights. I don't want him to be lost. I look at mothers who are mourning their children and sons. I feel for them, but I don't want him to go through this again. It's a dilemma. It's a very difficult dilemma that we're going through here. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks, Diana, for sharing this. And on those notes, I will come back to Jad. Because Jad, you've mentioned that you're trying through imaginations, through fabulation, to reconstruct what's missing and what's absent. And you're now about to launch your new album that speaks to that missing part. So can you start with the music first, and then you speak about your project?
Of course, yeah. So this is, drawing back from what you were saying, it's also very much rooted in folk music, but folk in the chanson tradition, chanson francophone. And what we're hearing is the last section of the opening song, with Khalil Muqaddam on the oud, Ziad Shbat on the nay. And there is a beautiful soundscape by my friend Anthony, who recorded the Mediterranean Sea on the Beirut shore before himself left and moved abroad. So yeah, we can definitely listen to it. So yeah, very much like you, Guillaume. My knowledge of music, my training has been very much rooted in Western music. Well, I studied classical piano in Lebanon, but there was this dichotomy between choosing to study Western music or choosing to study Arabic classical music. But by choosing European classical music, I've shot myself in the leg by not being able to naturally or orally listen to microtonal music, being able to sing the quarter tones, being able to understand rhythms in a somatic way and not in a very rigid and archaic music theory way. But this education, I guess, in European music also, and specifically in this project, helped me look at the links and the relationships we have with specific moments in Western music, what we call Western music, where Europe, for example, and the Renaissance fully adopted the oud and transformed it into the lute that we know today. But moreover, Baroque music and Baroque vocals, for example, have so much admiration for the Ottoman music that they had heard. But I speak of that mostly because in this project, what was coming into dialogue are these instruments from the Levant that are also in dialogue with French Baroque and Baroque instrumentation, notably viola da gamba. For a reason that in Baroque music, there is also this very communal way of playing music. Baroque ensembles rarely have conductors. Musicians look at each other when they're performing. But also Baroque music happened at a moment of immense grief where the plague was destroying families. Pergolesi wrote the Stabat Mater as he saw his own mother grieve as she was losing her sons. So it's only natural for me as a musician, having this knowledge, to see how it is deeply rooted in also the questions that I'm having, composing for instruments that I don't have knowledge of, but that I am very much close to, through the lens of maybe like the things of in Western music that are very much close to home. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing your project, Jad, with us. And I know this longing, how much it means to you. And on the note of the longing and taking from what you shared, Diana, about the notion of coming back. سنرجع يوما إلى حينا ونغرق في دافئات المنى سنرجع مهما يمر الزمان وتنفى المسافات ما بيننا. So when you will return, and you shall return, we shall return, when you visit the site, what is that thing that you want to find? Are you still with us, Diana?
Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah.
You're talking to me? I thought
Yeah.
to Jad, sorry.
Yeah, with you.
I wanted to see even the destroyed material, because I know every piece of the house, every stone, every marble. I want to see it. I want to go through it. Maybe I will find a piece of paper. My father used to keep everything. He used to keep our letters. You know, we are a generation where we used to send letters with papers and envelopes. My father used to keep them. And I respected his wish. We kept his office in the house. That office now was hit. Will I find any letter missing in the ground? Will I find any picture? Any something that could connect me to my father, his small bag? We kept many things at the house. I don't know. Will I find them? Will I find some of the flowers he planted, the trees? When I checked the photos, I found something, but I want to see how is it? What is it like for this house to be completely destroyed? The images, the photo images, the videos are not enough. They're very short, and it does not satisfy my need to grieve. I want to go there and sit and see with my own eyes the loss that we have suffered. What is it like to see it? I want to visit his grave. I want to see what are the possibilities after this. What happened to the whole village? My father used to love Tibnin. And you know, I still have pictures of him in the 60s when he visited Jerusalem. You know, we're from South Lebanon. There were no limitations. My father, my uncle used to go to Jerusalem, to Palestine, and come back in a couple of hours. I have those photos. Thank God I still have them with me here in the house. So I want to go and see what is it now. What's South Lebanon now today after this genocide, ecocide, all the kinds of sides that we have suffered. From a family perspective and from someone who's from South Lebanon, I want to see it with my own eyes. It's not enough to see it from far. I want to live it. I want to breathe it. I want to smell it.
What to say? We will invite if we have any questions on Zoom, and we have few audience in the space. Jad, I want to ask you the same question. I know the grandparents' house was full of our photos. What you would like to find when you come back, and we shall come back?
I was watching the film The Hand of God that takes place in Naples when Maradona joined the football team, and it talks about this young boy who dreams of becoming a filmmaker, and he's questioned on what is driving him to want to document, to talk about the city, what is driving him to want to be a witness. And he answers, because when his parents died, he wasn't able to see them. They wouldn't let him see the body. And I cannot stress this enough, if there is any trace, a debris, something that can be held, can be smelled, can be seen, can be grieved, I would like to have it. And I think it's a really strange time to be in the West, where anyone who might hear me would say that I am materialistic for needing these objects, these memorabilia as they call it. But when we are unable to access cemeteries, when we are unable to give people the rights that they deserve. When my grandmother passed, it was during COVID, so she definitely did not have the rights that she deserved. Whereas when her husband passed, she took the time to decorate his grave and make it as such that it is something that is sight to be seen. And I could only hope to be able to do the same, to find anything that I'm able to to use as an object of grief in order for any part of what is left to be able to ascend, or at least to find peace, depending on what we believe in.
Guillaume?
It's a really layered question, obviously. You know, as being born here, I have a romantic notion of what this home is, the Jabour home in Haifa, you know? And I have a deep longing, obviously, to go. And I know that the house still stands because a cousin of mine went like 2 decades ago, or a decade and a half ago, and actually got the current like address in the Israeli system. And it's actually, I have an image of it on, I'm not going to show it because it's upsetting. But we have an image of it on Google Maps, you know? Different street, different number. And so and you know, the family looking at it was, it's awful. It looks terrible. Look at what they did. Look what they did with the tree. You know, it stirs up a lot of negative feelings. So it's not a nice thing, but I have a romantic connection, obviously, to the beautiful parts that is home for my family. So there's layers, and you know, I watch a lot of films, and I'm always looking for a face that I recognize, you know, from archival films. Razan Al-Salah made a beautiful film, A Stone's Throw, in discussion and talking about the oil refinery. And I'm watching these archival footage, and I'm looking for faces, you know. And I watched it with my dad actually recently, and a story came out from watching that film that actually my grandfather worked not on the pipeline, but at the refinery in Haifa for a short time, and one of his brothers, you know, a second uncle of mine. And so these stories come out by engaging with other works made by other people that are doing this work, you know, this artistic work, and reaching people in a way that's beyond words. And so there's these crumbs and remnants that are part of my identity that I have a deep longing for, you know. But at the same time, I'm realistic. I'm an idealist, but I'm a realist as well. And I know that this is romantic, and so I have a fear as well that what happens if I do go? You know, am I prepared for that disappointment, or is it just a fear and I should just go? I don't know, you know. But there's certainly travel in my near future through my work, and we'll see where it leads me. But I'm trying to be very conscious of my own desires versus what serves the story. You know, what serves my family, what serves the other people that I'm going to be working with, and what part of it is my own desire. So I'm walking this tense rope.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing the element of ethics in that discussion, because we want things that might be hurtful to others. And thank you for always thinking about this element in your projects, Guillaume. And now we invite questions.
There are some hands up on Zoom, and I know that Salwa has had a comment. I don't know if Salwa, if you could unmute your mic and you could ask your question or comment if you are.
Hi.
Hello.
It's okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you for this meeting. I appreciate a lot what I hear, and I think these stories and telling will help us in gaining some of our human nature that is in miss this time. My children also lost their grandparents' house in Taibi in South Lebanon. And a lot of my friends, they are grieving. Even me, I am grieving with them because of their loss in South Lebanon. And it's so sad and hard to witness this destruction. And I am touched so much with Diana saying, I'll go back and fight back. This is how we keep the story up going. This is a hope for more awareness of how war and destroying affect our living and humanity nature. Living aboard is really hard, and sure, it's not hard as the people living there, but I think Lebanese have this special love to their original places, and I hope going back and for the thanks for this, and it's so good to tell stories in order to continue knowing for more human nature awareness. Thank you very much. Thanks. That's it. Okay.
Thank you. We also have a hand up from Abdul Wahab. If you are there, if you wouldn't mind, you could unmute.
Yes, hi.
Hello.
So thank you all for your presentations. I'm not a partial listener. I'm Guillaume's proud oud instructor. And I'm also a fan of Diana and Daraj and the work that they do.
Thank you.
And so I have a broad question, maybe specifically for Diana, but Guillaume and Jed, if you want to take a crack at it too, I'd love to hear your thoughts. We hear from various parties that this is actually not resistance, that the only resistance is military, and that the only way to fight back against the colonization, the only meaningful way to resist the colonization is military. And I'm wondering, what would you say to these kinds of comments? I mean, I know what I would say. I'm on your team, I'm on your side. But I'd love to hear your thoughts and your answers to these kinds of comments. So thank you again for opening up with us and sharing your stories and your emotions.
Thank you so much, Abdul Wahab, for your thoughts and the support and sharing. If you follow what I read and what I say and what I write, definitely I would defend the civil resistance. Part of it is defending our memory, our heritage. I would say, look at the Palestinians who insisted in staying in 48 areas in West Bank, despite everything, but they managed to keep their homes, and they are defending their lands, and they are defending their identity, their food, their language, their heritage. I mean, till today, the Israelis, despite the vicious attack they are doing, the Palestinians are strong in preserving their identity. And this is why the Israelis created the genocidal approach towards Gaza. When you demolish, when you destroy the whole land, and you are derooting the people, you are depriving them from staying in their homes and in their land. We should not enable this by having a stupid kind of resistance. And I insist on saying that. The way some so-called resistance factions are doing is by, let's turn all this area into a fighting, into a battlefield. No, you cannot turn everything into a battlefield. In a battlefield, we lose everything. When the Israelis get the chance into turning this into a dead area, you lose the heritage, you lose the story, you lose the people. So I'm not saying, it's a very thin line here between defending the right to resist and between having any kind of fighting. So today's today's kind of fighting, especially here in Lebanon, is not giving us any leverage. It's turning everything into a battleground. Tyre now is under fire. You cannot look. They put rockets in graves. They put rockets next to my father's grave. And if the Israelis hit back, even the dead will be removed. And this has happened everywhere. Yes, the Israelis are targeting everything, and they want to punish us. They want to punish every Lebanese, every Palestinian. But let's not help this happen. I think the priority should be keeping the people in their land. And even if I say it, I'm not defending this, but I think occupation with people remaining in their lands and in their houses is lesser evil than destroying and evacuating the land. So we have to be strategic in how we define resistance. And this is a long debate, but I'm ready to it. And I think the price today, with a dead land, with a land that has no inhabitants in it, how can you make this land livable again? This is unimaginable. It will take decades to make this land that was burnt away livable again. So let's be strategic in what resistance we are calling. So back to summarize, keeping the story, keeping the people in their homes and lands comes first to me before battlefield.
Jad, Guillaume, do you would like to add on this in terms of varied ways of resistance?
I'll say a little bit. I mean, it's hard to speak to this as someone born here and not been to the region, obviously, right? There's a very real, concrete separation of the reality in the region. I think that the resistance overseas, if you will, has to make sense for the place. I'll speak for myself. What I can do here is keep the cause of Palestinians, of Lebanese, of other things that are happening around the world that are touching on these similar imperial battles, colonial echoes, keep them present, keep them visible in the story of our politicians, even at a local level. I write my local politician regularly, and I'm sure he's tired of hearing from me, because the voice needs to be heard at all levels of government. And so, and I mean, there's things that the Quebec government can and should be doing right now. There are things that the Canadian government can and should be doing right now, instead of using this sort of feigned neutral language. And so I think that from away, what I can do is try to put pressure on our levels of government, and there's room for sort of loud resistance and protest movements like we've seen often right here at Concordia. I think there's space for that, and at the same time, it's not for everybody. And so there's different ways that our voices can be heard as well, and that has to be okay, I think, because, you know, making a lot of noise and breaking things isn't always going to have isn't maybe the impact that we want it to have, and you might not be heard because it's sensational sort of protest that might make it into the media, but it might not be sending the message that needs to be sent in that moment, right? I do believe it does something, and there's a role for it. But I think that it depends on what, where your place is and what you can do, and every little bit, I think, counts. But this is speaking, again, from a place of comfort and privilege away. You know, I'm away. And so this is where I'm speaking from, so that has to be transparent.
Yeah, to go back to your question, settlers don't have a culture, history, spirituality, traditions, values of family, values of a home. So we are serving them the South in a golden plate when we're deciding to turn it into a battlefield. And it's precisely what, Diana, what you were saying in your article. It's asking people that are sensible, that value beauty, love, caring for one another, to go and fight a war that should not be their war to fight if we were living in a society where a Lebanese army is doing its work. But that doesn't mean that we have to send off the youth. And I am maybe one, I could have been born in the same family, but in a different context, and I would have been one of those youth very easily. And I would have been sent to fight in the South. And looking at me now, I do not wish on any militia to recruit me. I don't but from what I can say from our privileged perspective here is that I do agree with Guillaume. We can protests are important and letting our voices be heard, but there is a very sensible and very important candidate from Palestinian origins, Rouba Ghazal from Québec Solidaire. If we are to talk about very pragmatic things to do, elections are coming up, vote. That's what we can do from here, and I'm pretty sure it's going to make a difference. At least nothing will be worse than what we have right now in Canada.
May I add something, Zaina, please?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Just to follow on what Guillaume and Jad said, let's separate two tracks. When you are in Canada or in the States or in Europe, and you want to prove for the other point of view, because there you are facing the Israeli narrative that would look at us as Palestinians, Lebanese, etc., as a lesser citizen. So the narrative, when you are in Columbia University or in Canada or protesting in Berlin, where there is duality, where there is no accountability to Israel's atrocities, I understand that the focus should be on Israel. But here internally, we are in Lebanon. We know what is Israel. We have lived so many occupations and killings and wars. So we know the price. We know that in year 2000, Israel withdrew from South Lebanon, and we were liberated from occupation. And I don't want to go back there. But after year 2000, and here I'm not undermining the expansion nature of Israel and the dangerous occupation and how they are treating the Palestinians. But from a Lebanese perspective, from somebody who is in South Lebanon, we need to know how to support the Palestinians without giving our land and our people on a gold-plated. We insisted from a perspective of Hezbollah that we are part of a regional axis and we are engaged in Iraq, in Yemen, in Syria, etc. We enabled and we gave ourselves on a golden plate for the Israelis. We cannot, let's approve the imbalance of power. And we enabled the Israelis to come and kill us and destroy our lands. Again, here there should be a thin line between the Israeli project in the region and Netanyahu's will and intention to be a master in the region, along with Trump. But at the same time, we need to know our capabilities and our priorities. Is our priority to fight without any perspective, or to preserve our people and our land, even if we make some compromises? I think the priority, from my perspective, is to preserve people's lives, preserve the land, the heritage, the food, the flower, everything, even if we pay some price. But unfortunately, the politics, the regional politics, the way the so-called resistance has been playing in the past couple of decades have cost us a tremendous amount of lives and land.
Any questions?
If there are any questions here in the space, you can just raise your hand. We can run around the microphone. And also on Zoom, if you have any questions or comments there, just pop them into the chat. We can read them out, or you can turn on your mic.
Okay, so I think that's it for the day. It was an honor, really, and a privilege, Diana, to listen to you, bringing that voice, that logic, that care for the space, for the land, for the people, and also for being candid in the way we approach resistance and in which perspective and at what cost. And I'm just reminded about, and I mentioned this in the introduction, that this separation from the land is an ongoing and is historical. And I shout out to our family, extended family, and I call the Indigenous people in Canada as an extended family because they received us on their stolen, unceded lands. And what I witnessed yesterday, seeing families, big families deported from their land, separated from their land, and placed away from their lands in a hotel away from the earth, from the womb of the earth, as an act of genocide, of memory that is happening today in Canada. And it's the same genocide that is reproduced by settlers because they don't know that connection with the land, with the smell of the flower, the tree when it's blossoming, the laughter of the mother when she's cooking in the morning, the smell of the cooking while traveling across the street, hypnotizing us, the gathering around a cup of coffee, and little kids will be moving around. So I think this genocide of memory is intentional, and from our side, we're accountable to keep that memory alive. So thank you for bringing your stories. Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, Jad. And again, thank you, Diana, for bearing witness, and for space, for allowing us to be here.
Thank you so much, Dana. I really appreciate the chance and taking this angle into consideration. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed listening to Guillaume and Jad, and please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zina. Thank you also to everyone joining us online and on Zoom. Thank you for your comments and your questions. We are going to close up our Zoom and live stream now, but it does remain available on our YouTube channel. You should revisit it. You should also have a fantastic weekend. Thanks, everyone.